BBC Radio Devon, 17 minutes to 11 with Caroline. Now, some people seem to pack several lifetimes of experience into one life, and Chris Thrall from Plymouth is certainly one of them. He's a former Royal Marine who's been through more than his fair share of highs and lows, and is now planning on reaching the highest of all of them, Mount Everest. But to understand why, you have to go through the lows first. And he's with us this morning. Chris, hello.
Hi Caroline, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you for coming in. Lovely to meet you. You're a former Royal Marine. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was okay. Interesting.
You were based in Devon?
Yes, I was based at 4-2 Commando, which is, as most people know, is at Bickley.
And life good there?
Yeah, it's a fascinating career choice for a young man from a broken home, you could say.
How old were you when you joined?
I think I was 17 when I went to the recruiting office. And
you turned up and you went, this is for me, I think, and you got stuck in. That's tough. I always imagine all the Marines at Lympstone, because I've always drive past and I've seen the assault course. I think, oh gosh, I don't think I could ever even get myself over a wall, let alone, do all the rest of it. So you went through that, you served your time, you left the Corps. What happened then?
So I found myself in Hong Kong. I left the Marines after 7 years to go and run what was heralded, at least we can say, as quite a successful business over there. Mm-hmm. And within, let's say, 7 months, I was chronically addicted to crystal methamphetamine, phasing in and out of clinical psychosis, homeless, and working for a triad group called the 14K, who are the triad family that run the Wan Chai nightclub district in Hong Kong.
Why do you think life went so horribly wrong?
Well, this is what climbing Mount Everest is all about. I want to highlight, Caroline, that what we're seeing in our veterans community, we're seeing a lot of suicide, homelessness, mental health, domestic violence, substance use. I believe it relates to complex trauma, which is something that you won't hear spoken about. You hear a lot spoken about PTSD, and everyone's seen the Rambo, the First Blood movies, and they think, trauma is this thing that service people get when they've been in combat. And of course, it's not like that. Trauma affects all of us on different levels and to different extremes. And you asked me, what was my military experience like? Well, I wouldn't give up in training. There was never a moment where I considered dropping out because I had nothing to go back to, except, a background that told me I was a bit of a failure, you could say, whether that's the school system, a lot of family upheaval, if I can say that. I think your listeners will kind of understand what I'm getting at. And I think that is a fairly typical makeup of an infantry type soldier. Joining up, probably living quite in the ego, looking to prove something. And what I believe we're seeing in our veterans community is when you leave the umbrella of the forces, all of that complex trauma that can be piled up and it can be added to by military experience, being in combat, for example. But you leave and you just haven't got the mental apparatus to deal with civilian life. And at that point, your trauma is triggering you for unhelpful behaviours. That's your drinking or your anger, whatever it might be. And this is leading to a downward spiral, which is, as I say, why we see so many veterans struggling.
You did get home, and what helped turn your life around, would you say?
So I couldn't really get any lower, Caroline. I was, although my psychosis cleared up, I was chronically depressed for the best part of 2 years. I'd gone from this glowing career in the Marines, or that's, certainly how I viewed it back then. I'd had this successful business which, through no fault of my own, had collapsed. And I had no reason to get out of bed in the morning, literally, and I wasn't qualified for anything. I couldn't get the proverbial job stacking shells, because shell stackers were far more qualified than I was to do that job. So I was self-medicating with substances for the best part of 2 years. It got to the point where I couldn't go any lower. I was just living in absolute chaos. I was a shell of the person that I used to be, and it all hit me in one go. In I guess what you could describe as a nervous breakdown. I suddenly thought, hang on a sec, Chris, you can blame all these people going through life, family, school teachers, whoever, you suffered under, but ultimately, who's doing this to you now? And of course the answer was myself, wasn't it? It was a real moment of clarity, and I thought, hang on, you've got to start taking care of you. Leave the past behind, just be grateful for it, because despite the ups and downs, you learn an awful lot, and you don't get into paradise by not having challenging experiences and embracing them and learning by them. And I thought, I'm going to be grateful instead of my usual rollover and kind of sleep in a depressive state. No, I'm going to throw up the curtains. I'm going to say, morning world, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity called life. A lot of my mates by that stage were no longer with us we lost a chap in the Northern Ireland conflict. I had friends killed in all kinds of horrific ways, and all too young. And what would they have done to be where I was now? They would have given anything. So I thought, right, let's start being grateful, and let's start living my life and not comparing myself to other people in any way, shape or form. If I want to sit in the sun, have a cup of tea, watch the people driving by in their Mercedes, who cares? So long as I'm happy, that's what it's all about. And I took action. I decided that I would cut down on my substance use. So rather than being a dependent every single moment of every single day, it encompassing my mind, my body, my finances, I thought, no, we'll do that once a fortnight, and then we'll cut it down from there. And what I found is, when you take action, the universe gives you back tenfold. And off the back of that, I've lived, worked and travelled in 86 countries across all 7 continents. I'm a qualified pilot, skydiver, advanced scuba diver. I've expeditioned to the Antarctic Polar Circle. I've written 7 books, one of them an international bestseller. I've taught street kids in post-war Mozambique. I've driven journalists to India and back, so we could write articles about people living in poverty on a big old Leyland school bus. I've run the length of the United Kingdom. I've run across the Sahara Desert. I've rode the Atlantic Ocean with my buddy Louis in January. And I've backpacked through every single country in the Americas. There's probably a few more things, but I'll stop blowing my own trumpet there. But I just want to explain to people that once you make that connection, once you stop seeing yourself as a victim and take action, then the universe, if you want to call that God, spirit, whatever works for people, it will give back to you. And this is my message for struggling veterans. You got to leave the past behind. Forget that hat that you wore when you were 18 years old. What is it you're going to do today? And as I say to everyone, you're born a legend, you'll die a legend, And I know you're a legend in between. You just got to make sure that you do.
That's so brilliant, Chris. Thank you. I mentioned right at the start of our chat, you're going to be going to Everest. So now the high. And when I say that, I mean really high. Tell me about that.
So I'm looking for supporters, not just in terms of donations. Like I say, I've got this important message, Caroline. I've done this. It works. No one else is talking about it. Even the charities talk about PTSD, but only from the perspective that you get it in battlefield. And I'm not disparaging the wonderful work that they do. People need to know that the reason our veterans are struggling so much is for the complex PTSD, which dates back to childhood that I mentioned. As such, I want to summit Everest to shine a light for all the veterans who are struggling out there. I'm looking for anyone that can support me, obviously, in terms of sponsorship, whether that's a local Plymouth business or donations through, can I say the GoFundMe?
Of course you can.
GoFundMe.com/Challenge Everest. And as far as Everest goes, it's all new. It's all completely new to me.
It's very new territory. When are you hoping to go?
The season starts in April.
Okay. So not long, to kind of get everything organised. And I was going to say you're right going up mountains and hills, but I think you probably,
Yes.
you think you're probably all right with it. You're pretty fit.
Yeah, I always think with any potential dream in life, just get stuck in, buy the ticket, take the ride.
Absolutely. Chris, I wish we had longer. I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for popping by today and telling us all about this upcoming challenge of yours. Plenty more. Just search Chris online, by the way, if you want to watch any videos, find out all about his books and his life. It's utterly fascinating. Chris Thrall there from Plymouth. Thank you very much. And if you've been affected by anything that Chris has talked about today, plenty more help and advice on the BBC Action Line, bbc.co.uk/action line. Chris, thank you.